With the track now finished in the arrangement stakes, we move on to what we like to call the pre-mix stage. Basically, this could be viewed as general housework before we approach the mix, and consists of us placing a number of processors on pretty much every channel of the mix. These processors basically consist of EQ and transient designers, but on occasion we do place compressors on the channel as well, depending on the overall timbre and if it needs some controlling. I must stress here that our idea is not to approach a mix down in the general sense. We're not going to touch volume or adjust the panning. Instead, we're going to prepare for the mixdown by performing some general duties. Now, generally, we start by placing an EQ on the channels. We use this to clean up frequency areas that we feel are defunct on that particular channel. Let me explain. We'll use a simple frequency. Open hats. Solo that and move it to where they start. Let's just play that back. Now, listening back to that, I can pretty much say that there's few, if any, frequencies occurring below 500, 600. Now, obviously I've got trained ears and experience to tell me that, but if you're a practicing musician and you're not sure on your frequencies yet, you can always call up an analyzer and check it out there, which we'll do here anyway for the purpose of this session. As you can see, there's a little bit of energy down there. It just pops up now and again. But most of the energy is contained above 600 or so across there. Now, obviously when it comes to the mix, we probably won't want hi-hat frequencies at around 500 Hz side in the mix. But we're not concerned with that at the moment. What we're more concerned with is that although there may not be any audible frequencies below 500 Hz, it doesn't mean there isn't any additional road frequencies happening down there. It could be a result of quantization noise. But whatever it is, if there is something there, it isn't contributing to the timbre in any way. So what we like to do is make sure that we remove everything below 500 Hz. I mean, what we can do is we can actually check this further by just increasing this. There you go, there. Can you see all those frequencies there? Well, they're not actually contributing to the timbre, they're just having low-end energy. And that can easily conflict with, at 200, that could conflict around with the bass, it could conflict with the drums. So what we need to do is we need to try and remove all of them if we can. Now, how we do this is we call up an EQ. We go. Now, I can't stress heavily enough that we have to use an incredibly clean, quiet and surgical EQ. Use anything less than this and you could end up adding more problems rather than just removing them. So what we'll do is we'll get our low cut filter and we'll set our frequency at around 500 there. As you can see there, we've got rid of quite a bit of that rubbish down there. And obviously, if we increase the frequency further, we do start to affect the sound, which isn't what we want to do. We don't want to affect the sound. All we want to do is try and remove something that could be there that there's no need for it to be there. Now basically, we perform that exact same operation on every single channel throughout this mix. And that's just to remove frequencies that aren't contributing to the timbre. Remember, we're not trying to mix these frequencies in, we're just removing frequencies that we don't feel contribute to that particular timbre. So what we'll do is, we'll start adding our EQs all the way along, and we'll come back when we do move on to the next step. Okay, as you can see, we've now placed EPure on every single channel in our mix, which is basically, we've removed all the rogue frequencies that could be in each of the timbres. And And the mix does sound a little cleaner for it now, even though we haven't actually approached the mix. It's all sounding a little bit cleaner. Now, the next step is to use the SPL Transient Designer. Now again, we'll use this on every single track. Now, generally, we use the SPL to move the sounds around the mix. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this DVD, we tend to determine an awful lot of the information about any timbre through the transient, and a simple movement such as removing some of the transient can push a timbre back into a mix. Therefore, before we even touch panning or mix EQ, we use the SPL Transient Designer to position timbres within the mix to places that we feel happier with. Now, obviously, we can't move them left and right, but we can move them forwards and backwards in the mix without having to touch any volume controls. And this type of dynamic processing can't be compared to mix EQ, panning of volume, but it's incredibly useful at helping to move the sounds around when you're preparing for that final mix. So what we'll do is we'll show you an example again on for example, these opener hi-hats again. Let's call up the SPL in there. We'll just solo them for the moment, and you can hear the difference that the SPL will make to this. Now what we'll do is we'll play that with the rest of the mix and listen to the difference it makes. Listen to what happens to this main open hat as we adjust the attack parameter. Listen what happens and see how it moves around the mix, even though all we're doing is adjusting the initial transient. It makes a big difference to the mix, and we tend to therefore put an SPL Transient Designer on every channel and use that to first position the instruments around. Now, for the moment we've decided against applying any compression since we want to leave that to the mixing stage. And we're also running out of time on this DVD because we've got an awful lot to fit in. Now, both mixing and mastering is beyond the scope of this DVD and is something we will be covering in detail in the next DVD. For now though, we hope we've given you a good insight into how we program and work with trance. And hopefully we'll catch you in the next DVD where we'll get down to mixing and mastering this track into producing the finished article.